Here are the forwards that our own Craig Button and our own Mike Johnson project Canada will use for the Four Nations face-off in February. There are no major surprises other than perhaps Steven Stamkos not being on the list. We're going to ask Craig about that in just a moment. They have Connor Bedard as the 13th forward. The centers, McDavid, McKinnon, Crosby, and Suzuki. And here is Craig to break down the forward group that he and MJ put together. We're loaded with talent up front, this Canadian team. Take us through the process, Craig. How did you and MJ narrow it down to these 13 forwards?
Well, one of the things, Jay, that you just touched on is they're loaded with talent. So when you're loaded with talent, that means you're going to ask some of the players to play out of position, some centers that'll play on the wing. And even when you go back and you look, we pushed Sam Reinhart over to the left wing just to try to find some players that thinking-wise, skill-wise could fit with other players. And certainly when you play for Team Canada, you are going to have to take on different positions. You're going to have to take on different roles. So as we were looking at it, I think the easiest thing, and Mike and I totally agreed on this, the number one center was McDavid, the number two center was McKinnon, and the number three center was Crosby. Those might have been the easiest three things that we were able to do with respect to naming players amongst the forward group.
But, you know, when you have this much talent, sometimes it's hard to whittle it down to one power play. If you had to do it, Craig, did you and MJ have a particular power play unit in mind?
Yeah, it's a really good question. One of the things I really believe is that you can have, with this amount of talent, you're going to have a lot opportunity to have different power play units. Why not have different power play looks? Have different players and whatever that unit is with their skill set run a certain type of power play, and have another power play unit run a different type of power play. That'll create a lot of confusion for your opponent. And I think that Team Canada has that ability. I mean, when you start thinking about McKinnon and you start thinking about Connor McDavid and the way they can control the game, but then you got so many smart players. You got Hyman, who's so good in front of the net. Certainly Marner can make plays. You got Sam Reinhart, Braden Point in the bumper spot. There's no lack of options. But what I would like to see John Cooper do, and I'm going to emphasize this, have two different power play setups and approaches. That'll make life difficult for teams trying to kill that type of a power play with that type of talent on it.
Let's talk about Connor Bedard. You and MJ have him as the 13th forward on this team. If something were to happen and Bedard was to slide into one of these four lines, where do you feel he might fit in best?
Yeah, well, one of the things that Connor Bedard has done for Team Canada, and we talk about versatility and adaptability, is move over to the wing. He's had great success on the wing. You know, how you play center, there's lots of centers there that can carry the load, and I think that it would be on the right wing. It might be on a spot up there, like you need somebody to give it a little bit of a different look with a McDavid, a different little look with McKinnon, even a different look with Sidney Crosby. Bottom line for Connor Bedard, and when I look at him, is that he's shown the ability to play with many types of players. That's flexibility. And when you have a player that can flex through your lineup, that gives the coaches lots of options. But I don't think there's any question that Mike and I felt that Connor Bedard not only deserves the 13th spot, that it really sets up him as he becomes the face for the next phase of Team Canada international rosters.
You're absolutely right about that. One notable omission, I mentioned it earlier, Nashville Predators center Steven Stamkos. What would it take, Craig, for Stamkos to earn a spot on this team over the course of the next few months?
Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, like there's so many good players, right? And Steven Stamkos has had a fantastic career. I mean, when you think about Steven Stamkos, he's going to have to show, and he's going to have to earn his way onto this team. Other players, you know, they can have a little bit of a slip in their productivity, but they've already shown what they're capable of doing. Steven's going to have to earn his way onto this team. So how do you do that if you're Steven Stamkos? Well, you do what you do best. You score, and you're a prolific scorer, and you show you can be a shooter. He's done all those things. Now he has to do it for the Nashville Predators and show Doug Armstrong and the Team Canada management that he's worthy. Because John Cooper knows what Steven Stamkos can do and what he has done in the past. Steven has to demonstrate that down the stretch here.
Craig, I understand a name that has been talked about a lot for this team and is very controversial is Tom Wilson of the Washington Capitals. And I understand you may have had him as high as 14th on your list of forwards. Could you realistically see a scenario, Craig, where Tom Wilson could play his way onto this team before the Four Nations face-off?
So I'm going to answer your question. Yes, I see a realistic chance for him. And just to be clear, without revealing anything, we had a 7-way tie for the 14th forward.
Wow.
Because, you all know who our 13th are. So everybody else now becomes an option. You just mentioned Steven Stamkos. You mentioned Tommy Wilson. Carter Verhaeghe is certainly somebody that could merit consideration. But when you think about what Tom brings and that rugged style, the skating, a great start to his season, certainly he has to be in consideration when you look at a player that could really help not only Team Canada, but could make every opponent that he plays against incredibly uncomfortable.
On tomorrow's show, Craig's going to come back. We're going to dress exactly the same. And Craig and I will reveal he and Mike Johnson's picks for Team Canada's defense and goalies for the upcoming Four Nations face-off.